what's the best thing for you about living in Hong Kong?
It's been my home now since 1967. I think I really appreciate the job that I do. I think I've been extraordinarily lucky just being the right person in the right place at the right time. And I think being female has helped to tour. I mean, for example, the Minister of Health in Mongolia said to me, I was the first non-Russian expert they ever had in 1990. In fact, I arrived in Mongolia the very day the Russians were leaving after having ruled Mongolia for about 80 years. And he said we weren't quite sure what it would be like having a non-Russian advisor coming in. And when we found you were female, we were happy about that. I think they felt I would be more perhaps gentle, more understanding in some way. I think being British helped because it would be unlikely, for example, that China would invite a Malaysian doctor from Malaysia to go and advise them on national policy. I think the fact that people felt I was part of Asia, I'd made a big effort to learn the language, I had a solid medical degree behind me, but I was not of any one nationality, one Asian nationality. So I think that helped. I think not being in my 20s and 30s helped, because Asian governments in general respect age. And they tend to listen more to people who have got experience behind them. And I think I just was at the right place. I don't think it's a job that would be possible now. For example, China's doing it themselves. They're passing the laws, they're raising the tax. Every country in Asia is now on wheels. Every country in Asia has ratified the WHO Framework Convention on Tobacco Control. They've picked it up, they're up and running with it, and they don't really need an advisor like me now. Whereas in 1980, I was helping them draft laws, I was helping them stand up to the transnational tobacco companies. For example, the Minister of Cambodia said to me, I've got a big problem with tobacco because the head of Philip Morris said he's coming in 2 weeks to meet with me, and I will actually be out of the country. I said, that's fine. And he said, no, but he said, I won't be here to meet him. I said, you don't have to meet him. You don't have to meet him at all. You know, you're the Minister of Health in Cambodia. You can choose who you want to meet with. And I said, in fact, it's probably not a good idea to meet at all with the tobacco industry. So I think I helped empower a lot of countries in the very early days of standing up to the tobacco companies. But equally, I helped them a lot with designing legislation, designing tax policies and things like that. So these are all par for the course now. They're all up and running. They're all happening. So I think it was just that moment in time. And I'm very appreciative of that. I was very lucky. And I've just had such an interesting life, being able to work principally with governments, and including, for example, I've been 3 times to North Korea. Not that many people have done that. In China, I've been 5 times to the Party School. Now, the Party School is the ideological think tank of the Communist Party in China. It's places where Kissinger goes, for example. So to be invited 5 times to work with them is a tremendous privilege, and help them with a document they were drafting on tobacco and it coming into force. Visiting the Great War when there was not a person on it. Going to countries and working with the governments instead of going as a tourist and just seeing the sights and so on, but working with the people in that country has just been the most amazingly opening in terms of just seeing how people live. Quite different from just going on a visit to Malaysia for a week and or to India to see the Taj Mahal, but just living and working for decades with these people. I mean, it's not that it was just a one-off. Countries like Singapore, for example, I must have visited 1-2 dozen times working with the governments there.
At some point, you were considered as one of the most dangerous people for tobacco industry. I guess it takes a lot of courage on your side. How was it, and were you threatened by them? And what did you feel? Because I guess many people would just quit at some point because of the pressure. Because you're one person against super powerful corporations.
I think at the very beginning it was quite daunting, just being on my own. And certainly I was quite vulnerable. The tobacco industry in 1989 said I was one of the 3 most dangerous people in the world. And I have come to wear that as a badge of pride, actually. And then more recently, just a couple of years ago, they said there were 8 people who were, the most dangerous people. I was still on the 8. So I was pleased to see that I hadn't sort of gone down a bit off the top list. And the tobacco industry has never learned that the more trouble I have with them, the stronger it makes me. I get more and more determined when I see them. But certainly they have called me every name under the sun you can think of. They've said I'm like Hitler, I'm like a nanny, I'm like an interfering busybody. They've called me so many names. I've twice been threatened with being taken to court for lawsuits by them. Nothing came of it. So in other words, it was just a threat, and they never followed it through. So it was a threat, and it was also, however, a message. Once I was on live radio, when they threatened me on live radio on RTHK with this. They were also letting the audience know she's not accurate with what she's saying, which in fact I was. And RTHK the following day checked up. They said actually what Dr. Mackay said was accurate and so on. But it's trying to sort of undermine my authority as well as being threatening. I have to say, one reason that we sent our 2 sons back to Scotland to continue their schooling was that I was quite concerned about their safety. They had to go up what was then a pretty lonely road up to catch a school bus. That was not really good news. But to give it a sense of how important it was, the Secretary for Security, Geoffrey Barnes, the late Geoffrey Barnes, in Hong Kong, he at one stage insisted that I had 24-hour police protection because he said that, all these things that are happening, libelous to say it's the tobacco industry, some of them, we have no proof. But he said, we want you to have 24-hour protection, the government does. And I said, look, I just don't want to live 24 hours with a policeman. And so he said, okay, I'll just let it be known that if anything happens to you, we'll have official government inquiry. And so I felt more secure after that. And of course I feel secure now because I'm not a suicidal type at all. If I was found at the bottom of Hong Kong Harbour, everybody would think it was the tobacco industry until proved otherwise. Yeah. So I don't feel so concerned now. But certainly in the early days, when I was on my own, being called all these names, I've been likened even more recently to a jihadist. It's changed now from being Hitler to a jihadist. But they've tried to undermine my credibility. That's what they've tried to do all along, and to also make it uncomfortable for me. But it tends to make me stronger. I don't know. Maybe it's my Yorkshire upbringing, my Yorkshire genes. I've got some Danish Viking genes as well. So maybe it's a combination of those two. Give me strength.
You are 81?
Yes.
81.
Yes, I'm 81.
How does it feel to be 81?
Well, I still feel as if I did. It's the other way around, 18. I think inside myself, I still feel very much the same. I realise I'm not, of course, I'm not deluded. But I think I feel much the same as I did. I feel more experienced now. And certainly in terms of tobacco control and understanding the world and, life and friends, of course. I mean, I've had a lifetime of, just wonderful experiences in that regard. But I don't feel very much different from how I did then. And I've often said to people I'd be working till I'm 100. Yeah. So that's what I plan to do. So the tobacco industry need not pop the champagne glasses yet. I'm certainly not retiring. Not at all.
Yeah. What's the meaning of life for you?
I think to be happy. I think there's so many things in the world that we have no control over. Some of the things that are going on in the world today in the Middle East, and wars in Europe and so on, we can do only so much ourselves. We can maybe not buy something that comes from a particular country, but in fact remarkably little. But I think if we ourselves are happy, then we spread that to people. We make other people happy. And I suppose I really value joy in life. I wake up every morning thinking grateful. I feel grateful and I feel positive about life. I'm just a cup half full person. And I think that if I can make people happy and make people smile, I think if I do an interview and don't make people laugh, I think that's a failure. If I give a talk at a conference, even on tobacco, and I don't somehow make the audience laugh with me, I think that's a failure too. So I think I value happiness. And from an individual point of view, what more can we do than to really value joy in life and appreciate it? And that's a very core value to me.